for some reason or other, I just felt uncomfortable touching the casket and moving it with them. So I just followed them, and then they put it on this track, okay? And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I could have put it on the track. Turns out that track went right in, and this door opens up, and it was a furnace.
Oh.
Alhamdulillah, I
You
did
didn't
not
take
touch
part in
that.
that.
I can't be like Rip Kobe.
We are not allowed to pray for the forgiveness and mercy of any non-believer that has passed away. So there's one particular graveyard here where I think the whole entire cost is $23,000.
For one...
$23,000.
I can't afford to die.
Exactly.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another episode of the Prophetic Mentality Podcast. I am your host, Amr Mabrouk, joined by my co-host Munir, and a very special returning guest, finally, Shaykh Furhan. Welcome back, second round. You are one of the original 7. How are you doing today?
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, it's always an honor to be here. I'm doing good. Alhamdulillah, life is good. Everything's pleasant.
Alhamdulillah. First time we had you, you were at the old studio in my tiny apartment. Now we've upgraded to this beautiful IOK
MashaAllah.
studio on your turf. Alhamdulillah. Things are coming full circle.
Alhamdulillah.
So, Sheikh, before we get like too deep into this topic, it's going to be a heavy topic today. How do you do with the teenage versus Sheikh's basketball tournament?
So the word on the streets is we got massacred. So there's an element of truth to that. They did beat us by 20 points.
20, okay.
And so I guess 2 clarifications.
Yeah, I said, how did you do?
Yeah.
Not your team.
Yeah.
I'm talking. How was your game?
We didn't pick the teams. The kids picked the teams.
Okay.
And they had 2 mashallah varsity high school basketball players on their team.
Okay.
And all the imams and sheikhs were in their late 30s, early 40s. I did my job. I said when I play basketball, I have one job, to put the ball in the hoop. And that's what I do. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
But we also had a lot of turnovers from some of our players. And all those turnovers turned into fast break points. So at halftime, we were good.
You can name drop.
At halftime, it was 24-21. So we're right there.
And then the stamina kicked in.
And then the third quarter, they just outran us.
Oh, man. You guys were gassed.
Basically, if we ended at halftime, it would have been like respectable.
Alhamdulillah. Glad to see the youth out and about, though. You don't see kids outside these days, so
You don't.
that's good. That's good. Yeah.
But even all the kids that play, like I remember growing up, we'd play ball in the park at least 2-3 hours every single day. The same park, if you go there today, it's empty.
2-3 hours a day? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I used to be out all day.
I guess so. MashaAllah. Yeah, you don't see kids out now. You know who I see at my local park? Drug dealers. It's a good area too, but we're in California. You know how things are.
They were there back in the days, but they still played ball.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so today, Munir, what's the topic?
All right, a little heavier than that, but we want to have a comprehensive go-to resource for people who want to discuss death. So you almost call it how to die, but Islamic laws of death and burial. And I want to start us before death even, because there are things that happen when a guy is sick, for example, and not every sickness turns to death, but that's typically where we start. Someone's sick, how are we going to deal with that? And then we're going to move our way through slowly until someone's buried, and then even a little after that.
Okay.
So we get the full picture. So every question someone might have of this, any scenario, and inshallah we'll timestamp this YouTube video. Someone can just scroll through, find that question, and then they can get the answer. Okay. It's all in one place.
Yeah, Munir will timestamp it. I'm already busy enough.
I got you. So now, Sheikh. So we have someone, a friend of ours, they say they're sick in their home. So what do we do? Is a Muslim, are we obligated to visit? Should I not visit? He's sick. I don't want to push and be a burden on them.
COVID, I don't.
How long should I, COVID aside, let's say. How long should I visit? Maybe they need company. They're lonely, right? They've been sick. Should I be there for a couple hours, really? Be there for them? Yeah. Should I bring food, not bring food? Are they supposed to serve me, actually, right? As I'm the guest.
Okay.
So go through that.
So I guess first and foremost, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So sickness, obviously, it's like a natural part of life. Everyone's going to get sick at one time or another. And the beautiful thing about Islam is that literally there's guidance for every single thing that we do and every single thing that happens to us, including illness and sickness. So there's like illness and sickness from the perspective of the person that's going through it. And then there's, the family and friends and community members. So for the person themselves, first and foremost, it's always important to remind them about all the ahadith that talk about being patient, having sabr. And if you're patient with your sickness and your illness, it becomes a source of spiritual purification. It's a means of having your sins expiated and forgiven. And if a person has no sins left, it elevates the ranks in paradise. So actually helping them have that type of mindset, that attitude, and that's part of what we do when we go to visit them. So if we have a friend who's ill, who's sick, one of the rights they have upon us is actually to go visit them. There's a famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he mentions, several rights that we have upon each other, and one of them is visiting when they're sick. And there's another hadith where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a hadith Qudsi says that, how come you didn't come visit me? And the person will ask, what do you mean? He'll say, so-and-so was sick and you didn't go see them. So there's a lot of encouragement to go and visit people who are ill, who are sick. And the main objective behind it is to give them some sort of solace, some sort of consolation, to give them company. Because when people are sick, they're feeling down physically, but they're also feeling down emotionally, psychologically. So you go and you cheer them up. So there are a lot of guidelines and etiquettes for visiting someone who's sick. You should choose an appropriate time. Don't show up like really early in the morning. Don't show up really late at night. Try to figure out if it's a time that's comfortable for the person you're going to see. And when you go there, you are not supposed to stay there for a long time.
What's a long time? Or is that just subjective to?
It's really subjective.
Okay.
But a long time would be where they start becoming uncomfortable.
Okay.
Like you kind of sense they're tired. They're kind of like you've overstayed your welcome. The purpose is you go there, you cheer them up for a bit, you talk to them, raise their spirits, remind them about being patient and reward, and then you leave. Some of the etiquettes are you're not supposed to like ask them, how sick are you? What did the doctor say? What's going to happen?
What's the prognosis?
How long you got left?
Right? Don't give unwarranted and unwanted medical advice. Right? Don't be like, oh, you should take this medicine and that medicine, or the pharmaceuticals are all to get your money. Forget all your prescriptions and go herbal and whatever and go vegan. don't do all that stuff when you're there. There's a really, really beautiful book by Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda, rahimahullah, right? Famous Syrian muhaddith, faqih. He has a book called Min Adab al-Islam. It's been translated to English, Islamic Manners, and there's a whole section on the etiquettes and manners of visiting someone who's sick. And he mentions all of these various etiquettes along with like the evidence from the Quran and from the Hadith. So it's a really beautiful book.
Is there another book? Because those books are like gold. I think they may be out of print. If you have one, hold on to it.
Fortress of the Muslim.
I have not
probably
seen
has like some section.
It has the supplication.
What about like Adab al-Mufrad?
Yeah, that has some of them as well.
That has some of them? Okay.
But Islamic Manners, that's like the go-to text for this topic. We have a bunch in the library upstairs.
You hear that? Become an IOK seminary student.
I'm sure you can find the PDF online.
Yeah, so. Every Islamic book has its PDF. Yeah.
But that's like that. And again, when you go, your main objective, your main purpose should be, I'm going to cheer this person up.
Okay.
Right. And there is also prophetic advice for offering that person their like favorite food. Because there is something about finding comfort in a good meal. Right. So if a person's sick and they're expressing that, hey, I really want to eat something, take it to them and serve it to them. They'll just cheer them up.
Yeah, and my family, we've done that before where someone's sick and even with COVID, so say you can't go. Now we have DoorDash, Uber Eats, whatever else. We've sent food, right?
You can at least send something.
Or send the Venmo charge of like, this is how much it would cost to get like I know you love Jamba Juice. So like, this is how much it would cost. Either get it or get something else for yourself. But here's the money. I wish I could come visit, but I can't. And even if like maybe they're in the Bay Area, I'm in SoCal, can't do that, right? Yeah. So it still means today to quote unquote help out or visit without going physically.
Definitely. So yeah. So even if it's like calling someone, texting them, that's also a form of fulfilling that right.
Yeah.
All right. And the best would be to actually go see them in person. If they're local, if they're your relative, if it's a community member, there's nothing like going in person. And honestly speaking, it really does bring them joy. It brings them happiness. And those are the memories that they'll remember regarding you. It will have them make dua for you.
Yeah.
It's just something that like the spiritual aspect of it can't like be like quantified.
Especially if someone is really suffering, so all their sins are being forgiven and then they're becoming more pure, so their dua is more likely to be accepted than yours, so maybe you should make your way over there.
So for the Prophet ﷺ, one of the adiyas, it's pretty short, right, is la bats tahur inshallah. Right, so in other words, like
la bats tahur, like it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
it's a means of purification.
There you go. Yeah.
Right? And there's other, in Mishkat al-Masabih, the famous hadith collection by Allama at-Tibrizi, there's a whole section there's a book called Kitab al-Janaiz. It's like the unit on funerals. And it goes through the hadith from illness all the way until burial and afterwards. So there is a section which talks about, like, if you go there, there are certain supplications that you should recite, like la ba's tahuran. And again, the purpose of that is to uplift their spirits. But also there's like aspects of ruqya that you can do. Like when you go to someone and they're feeling physical pain, you can recite al-Fatiha, right? You can recite certain ad'iyah that are mentioned. I forgot what the exact wording is, but there's some supplications. And then like the Surah Al-Ikhlas, Al-Falaq, Al-Nas. Those are all from established riwayat, established ahadith that you can do. And that also, again, becomes a source of consolation for the person, that your visit to them is just not like, hey, I'm just here to see you. There's some actual like practice and ibadah going on at that time as well.
Is that translated in English?
It is.
It is? Okay.
The translation is not the best of translations.
Okay.
But it does the job.
Okay.
It does the job. There's actually sunnah.com. I think they've uploaded like 70% of the book so far. So that section has been translated.
Okay. Perfect.
And then in English, there's an exhaustive commentary that's been translated. I think it was originally in Urdu to English. Again, the translation is not the greatest, but it does the job.
Yeah.
Nice.
I want to make a point on the visiting, because women tend to be way better at this than the men.
Right.
They're more likely to follow up with their friends, to go out of their way for them. Whereas guys, it's like we'll put in a call and it's like, how you doing? Like, oh, I'm okay. Like, okay, you know, and we tend to underplay things.
Yeah.
But, you know, even as guys, your brother will appreciate it if you go out of your way for him.
Definitely.
You know,
For sure.
even though he may not say it, but
Definitely. And I would say, like, in a modern context, even more so.
Yeah.
Because we're so like disconnected.
Yeah.
Especially emotionally and like socially and like those interpersonal skills. People just really appreciate being like acknowledged, being like taken care of.
Yeah.
So it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And it's not going to cost you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So Shaykh, let's say, as is inevitable in Islam and all life, someone's going to die. We all die. And this person on the sick bed may actually be on their deathbed.
Mm-hmm.
So, and let's say, like, we know this is terminal. Like, it's not one of these questionable, like, are they going to make it? Not like, this is it. This is the end of the time. Doctor calls you in. What should we be doing? I'm sitting there over this person. Should I be saying, say your shahada, say it, come on, you're going to die any minute, say the shahada? Should I be yelling it like that? Or how do I encourage them to say that?
Very good. So there is the hadith that man kana akhiru kalamihi la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah. That whoever's last words are la ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, they say the shahada, they'll enter into paradise. So there's this aspect of encouraging them to say it. Now, encouraging to say it doesn't mean that you're standing at their deathbed and you're like yelling at their ear, hey, say the shahada, say the shahada. Because at that time, people are going through difficulties and hardships. You don't know how they're going to respond. So the advice is not to do that, because it's possible that they're like, no, I'm not going to say it. You don't know what mental state they're in. You don't know what's going to happen. So what they say is you just recite it in their presence. You keep saying it in their presence. Someone keeps saying it in the room. And there's something psychologically, if you hear something being repeated, you start repeating it. And we actually did a social experiment on this during Hajj.
Someone died?
No, we just did a joke to see how this works.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what it was, but there was like this really catchy Arabic commercial, and part of it was "A'tini telefonak."
Give me your phone.
Give me your phone.
I don't know where this came from, but there was like 4 of us in a room. So 3 of us said, we're just going to keep saying it. Let's see what the 4th person does. So we just kept saying it like randomly. And within like 15 minutes, the 4th guy started saying it randomly too. So the guidance is that you don't directly instruct them. You don't directly give them a command to say it, but you just recite it in their presence.
Yeah.
And again, the hope, the expectation is that they hear it and they'll say it as well.
Okay.
All right. The second thing, that in their presence, it is recommended to recite Surah Yasin. Right, there's a hadith of the Prophet "Iqra'u Yasin ala mawtakum."
So before death.
Before death. Right. The literal translation is recite Yasin upon your dead, but it's interpreted to mean
before,
when they're on their deathbed.
Yeah.
And the wisdom behind that is that Yasin, a lot of its main topics and themes revolve around Iman and the Day of Judgment. So it's supposed to serve as a powerful reminder to them, and it gives them the opportunity to reflect and kind of repent and do istighfar before leaving this world. So
is it too late to repent while you're on your deathbed?
The door of repentance is open until you leave this world.
Okay.
Hatta yugharghir. Right? The wording of the hadith is until your soul is literally being taken out of your throat.
Okay.
So the last moment, you can always do tawbah.
Allah.
Alhamdulillah. All right. So this person, you've been reciting Yasin, they say the shahada, inshallah, they pass away. Now, as I'm sitting here standing over this dead body, what are the rules of quote unquote engagement with this body? Am I allowed to touch the body any way I want? Can I kiss their forehead? Right? Some people say these are bid'ah, not bid'ah, etc. And let's say I'll take another step. Let's say it's someone's wife. Has my marriage technically ended at death? Am I allowed to touch the body anymore? Can I see the body, etc.?
Okay. So as soon as the person passes away, the prophetic guidelines are, you make supplication for them.
Mm-hmm.
You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make things easy, to ease their transition into the barzakh, to overlook their faults and their shortcomings. And it's said that, sometimes when a person passes away, their eyes remain open.
Mm-hmm.
So you should close the eyelids,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's kind of a scary sight where you have a deceased person and their eyes are still open and it seems like they're like looking into space or they might be looking at you. So you close the eyes. They say if the jaw is open as well, you kind of close it shut because
especially if rigor sets in, then it's really hard.
Exactly. Then it's hard to adjust that.
Yeah.
So that's why you see the cloth around people's mouths sometimes. They're tying it down.
To tie it down, right? And then in terms of kissing, you can like kiss the forehead. There are instances where one companion had passed away, and the Prophet ﷺ was informed, and he came to see him, and he kissed him on the forehead. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu did the same for the Prophet ﷺ. When he heard about the Prophet leaving this world, he came in, he saw him, and he kissed him on his forehead. So that is permissible. That's something that can be done. There's absolutely nothing wrong with crying, right? Expressing your grief and your sorrow, that's totally normal. It's a natural human reaction. It's a natural human emotion. And it's a sign of rahmah. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that this is rahmah that Allah has placed in our hearts. The Prophet ﷺ cried at the death of his son. He cried at the death of his grandchild as well. He cried at the death of some of the companions. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But in crying, we try to control our emotions in the sense that we're not expressing any sort of displeasure with God's decree. Right? We're not saying that, why did you do this? Why did you take him? Why wasn't it me instead? You're like still in your senses, but you're crying. You're expressing that natural grief and sorrow. In terms of like the relationship between husband and wife, it becomes complicated. So in the most technical sense, like absolutely technical black and white letter of the law, the Hanafis say that if the wife passes away, then the marriage immediately comes to an end.
Really?
And the reason why they say that is because they're looking at the marriage as a strict contract, right? It's an aqd between two individuals. It's a contract between two individuals. So once that wife passes away, her end of the contract is done. It's come to an end, and the actual nikah before them no longer exists.
Okay.
And because of that, that is why the Hanafi say that the husband cannot bathe the body of his deceased wife.
That's just the Hanafis.
The Hanafis particularly.
Okay.
I know there's other opinions. I'm not sure which madhahib hold it, but they disagree.
Okay.
Right. But the Hanafis are strict on this. Right. The Hanafis say that the husband cannot bathe his deceased wife's body because he's no longer her husband.
So it would have to be one of her
her children, her uncle, her father.
Siblings.
So you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Because I told someone this, like, that makes absolutely no sense. Just for the logical part of it, like, hypothetically, a man has 4 wives, and this wife dies. Could he not get married again to a 4th wife? Or does he have 5 wives now? She died, she's died.
Exactly.
Right? So that's the logic behind it, just so people don't think these come out of nowhere and, wow, it's so heartless.
So it's contractual. They're looking at it as a contract.
It's a black and white again.
Which the nikah, it's a nikah contract.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, that makes sense. Actually, the way you explained it, that
clarifies it.
I learned that in IOK seminary.
the second reason that you need to sign up. This whole thing is sponsored by IOK.
The opposite, that if the husband passes away, then the marriage is still intact with an aspect. Because she goes through her iddah.
Yeah.
She's supposed to go through the waiting period of 4 months and 10 days. So during that iddah, the nikah is still intact.
The fuqaha are so smart.
So the nikah won't come to an end until the iddah
is over. Okay.
So she can still, touch the body, see the body. if she wants to help wash
All
it.
right, so I'll give you another question. It's a little more controversial that comes off of this.
Okay.
The person's passed away and it's been 5 months, so both sides.
Who says Islam doesn't respect women's rights?
There you go.
Sorry.
So let's say it's been 5 months. So both sides, the iddah and everything's been gone. Can we have pictures of the significant other still on our phones? They're uncovered. Ooh.
That's a difficult one. And I think the technical black and white would be no.
Wow.
Right? The technical black and white would be no because you're no longer married.
Subhanallah. That's a tough one.
That's something I didn't even think about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to delete a whole bunch of photos. Well, you give them to your kids or something, but like you cannot.
Unless you go back to the fatwa, the pictures are haram.
There we go. And then it was all bad in the first place.
I think you should just become a Maliki at that point.
Do you know the opinion of the Malikis? You don't know yet.
I don't know it, but
All right. So
You know, before pictures became like really like ubiquitous with the phones and stuff like
yeah.
that. There's a famous speaker. We're at a conference, and people were just constantly like taking pictures of him.
Mm.
He's like, "Hey, remember when pictures were haram?" Like in the middle of this talk, everyone's like, "Oh."
Okay, so we talked about marriage. Dua, just asking for forgiveness and ease for them.
Yeah.
Okay, can people visit when the body's still let's say they're at your house or from the hospital, we move them to your house or whatever else. Can they come visit you with the dead body there?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Right? They're like, in the American context, we've seen so many movies and TV shows like there's this whole like lying in wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what's the permissibility on that? Where you have where they dress the body and people come by and they take a look. Is that
that goes against like the Islamic norms and etiquettes.
Because they embalm it. They
They
fill it up
embalm
with
it. Yeah,
weird
yeah, yeah.
chemicals.
They embalm it. They like dress it up. They comb the hair. They put like a nice 3-piece suit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
like well, this was before I knew you're not supposed to do that. I attended a non-Muslim funeral, and he had actually fallen off of a building.
The
person that died. I think he was doing parkour.
Wow.
And that's so, and they had the wake, and you can tell that they had to put his like face back together, and it did not look. Actually, yeah, it was like I would rather not, know. But I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's not against etiquette.
Yeah. In the Islamic context, like after like when a person passes away, people can come still see them. They want to look at them one last time.
Okay.
But the general advice is to hasten the funeral process as soon as possible.
What's the time? Is it like 48 hours, 24 hours?
There's no time limit. It's just as soon as things can get done, it should be done.
What if I'm running out of time? Do I throw the body into the ocean like Osama bin Laden style?
Okay, Munir.
I don't know about that.
That's the American fiqh process.
That was the American fiqh.
Where's the body? Oh, he's dumped in the ocean.
They said I have to bury it. Yeah.
I know here at some of the Muslim mortuaries, after the washing, they have like a little like waiting area, like a staging room. Well, the body's shrouded, but they'll uncover the face for like the family to come say, see you one last time.
Okay.
That's okay.
So I mean, in America or the American context, sometimes they'll wait weeks.
Yeah.
Whereas like I have known people here, they'll get a call, be like, oh, your father died and we buried him. Like this in the Middle East. Like, oh, your dad died, we buried him. We're just letting you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You didn't even get a chance.
Yeah.
So,
so the encouragement is that it should be done
as soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
Okay.
So there shouldn't be any unnecessary delays. Sometimes like there are children in different states or different countries, they want to make it back. If it's something like super like important to them and super emotional and they're like going to be upset, then there's leeway, right? There's leeway to give them that time.
But it's generally for the rights of the body, right? The body itself has certain. Okay.
Correct. Like there's I forgot the exact wording, but there's a hadith where the deceased actually says that, hey, hurry up and take me to my grave.
Wow. Because there's another whole process that starts in the grave, right?
So going back, you mentioned going to like a non-Muslim's funeral. So sometimes someone's parent passes away, maybe at work or something. Yeah. Do I say may they rest in peace? They're in heaven now. They're an angel looking over you. Yeah. How do I speak to them?
That's a very, very important topic, and I think it's been highly like misconstrued and misunderstood and misrepresented. We are not allowed to pray for the forgiveness and mercy of any non-believer that has passed away.
But
that has already died.
But the Prophet ﷺ stood when the Jewish procession walked by. So
we'll get to that.
Okay.
All right. So first and foremost, like you can supplicate for a non-believer if they're still alive. You ask Allah, Allah bless him. May Allah give them guidance. May Allah guide them towards the truth. May He make them. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But once they leave this world, they are in the hands of Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do whatever He's going to do with them based on His mercy, based on His justice. Right? That's the realm of Allah. We're not there to do that. We don't judge in the afterlife.
Based on what we knew of this person as they were alive.
Correct. Okay. So if we know someone passed away upon disbelief, and that's what we know, there's no apparent sign that they accepted Islam, they didn't do the shahada on their deathbed, they died, we know they were like, atheists their whole life.
Yeah.
They died as a non-Muslim, we cannot pray for their forgiveness, we cannot pray for their mercy. because we can't.
I can't be like Rip Kobe.
Yeah.
Munir, you're gonna piss off.
That
was happening, yeah.
That's my point.
Rip Kobe, yeah.
I mean, actually, every time a big celebrity dies or someone who like advocates for
It's,
Palestine, they'll say "Rip whoever, R.I.P. Rest in
what's his
peace."
name? Black Panther.
Oh yeah,
Chadwick.
Chadwick.
R.I.P.
That
That was a lot.
yeah.
And it happens all the time. Muslims say "R.I.P." Not understand. I don't think they understand that R.I.P. means rest in peace, which is a prayer, and you're praying for a deceased non-Muslim.
I mean, they'll just straight up say like, "Oh, like you're in heaven now, watching over us. You've blessed." It's like, what is going on? Like,
Muslims say that.
Yeah, they say that.
Well, you're not on Twitter yet, so that's
100%. It
Yeah.
never will be.
yeah,
I mean, the biggest evidence, the biggest proof for that is in the Quran itself.
yeah.
Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the believers, they cannot make istighfar, right? لِلْمُشْرِكِينَ وَلَوْ كَانُوا أُولِي قُرْبًا, even if it happens to be their relatives. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, when his uncle Abu Talib passed away, right, he was there at the deathbed, and he was encouraging him, like, just say this one statement. If you say this one state, I can intercede on your behalf, right? And at the end of the day, Abu Talib didn't do what? He didn't say it. He refused to profess that faith, and because of that, the Prophet ﷺ was told not to do what?
No forgiveness.
Don't make dua for him. And this is someone that was perhaps, like in terms of relationships, was one of the closest people to the Prophet ﷺ.
Yeah, he was way closer to the Prophet ﷺ than you were ever close to Kobe or you know what I mean? So even though you may have like a connection,
Emotional connection
with Kobe, there's no way.
There's no way.
There's no way it even
This is his
equates.
paternal uncle
Paternal uncle.
that played the role of his father.
Yeah, raised him.
From the age of, I think, from 8 to 25, he stayed in his home.
He protected him when he got the risala. So it's imagine that emotional when the Prophet ﷺ was told you cannot.
I mean, the Prophet ﷺ, the best human being to walk on the face of the earth, the last and final messenger himself is being told that you cannot make dua for your own uncle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that should be enough for all of us to like accept.
Yeah.
Like, we accept. And it's not like, I don't know what it is, but people are like, oh, that's not fair. That's not right. That's not mercy. That's not compassion. Or are you more merciful than Allah? Right? Are you more merciful than the Prophet?
Yeah, people need to get that in their head, man.
Yeah.
So, Shaykh, how about condolences for Muslims? What am I supposed? I think that's one of the things most people don't know what to say.
Right. So before that, making dua for non-Muslims, a common question is, can I also attend the funeral of a non-Muslim?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Right. Can I participate in their funeral? Can I go to their like service or whatever it is?
Yeah.
So the general ruling is you can participate as long as you're not participating in any religious activity.
Okay.
Right.
So stand there, can get buried there.
Yeah.
Just hey, it's okay. Give the condolences to the family.
Correct. But make sure you're not participating in the religious.
Yes.
Like
Is that the general ruling or is that a minority opinion?
That's the general.
That's the general.
That's the general. Like as long as you're not making dua for them, you're just there to pay respect to the family.
Okay.
Right. This was a friend of mine. This was an acquaintance. We grew up together.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe it's a close family friend. You're going to their funeral. You're like consoling the parents. Giving them some solace. That's okay.
And you can pray for the parents. Actually, you can so people may not the non-Muslims, they won't realize you're not quote unquote praying for them because you say God bless you and your family, right?
Patience.
Yeah. You're speaking to the family, obviously not to the dead, right?
Correct.
You can do that.
May God guide you to the straight path. Exactly. Just keep
Start in there.
But make sure you don't participate in any religious services. Otherwise, a video might come out, and we'll learn about new terms that we've never heard before, like libation.
Yeah. It's actually no. Remember the funeral I was telling you about that I attended? At some point, they carried the casket.
Yeah.
And they were like having the young guys like help. By the way, I was in high school. So it was a long time ago. So for some reason or other, I just felt uncomfortable touching the casket and moving it with them.
Yeah.
Right. So I just followed them, and then they put it on this track. Okay. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I could have put it on the track. Turns out that track went right in, and this door opens up, and it was a furnace.
Oh.
You're cremating. Right? And I was like, Alhamdulillah, I did not touch that. Yeah. I did not take part in this. This is really, really bad. And I just, because they opened it up, and it was like this huge fire. I was like, astaghfirullah, bro. Like this.
It's kind of scary, like a physical manifestation of what could possibly happen.
Seriously.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. I was standing right there, and it hit me. I was like, whoa. I did not expect that. But yeah, so let's just be careful,
Be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful. As for condolences to like the believers, this is something.
The non-believers, we could just say my condolences. That's good enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry for your loss. May God give you patience. May He bless you. things like that. Keep it generic and general. Right. For Muslims, learning how to give proper condolences is really important. Right. Our deen has a huge social component to it, particularly when it comes to interpersonal relationships. And again, just because of the way society is structured and individualism, I think we've kind of lost that art. Right? We've lost our art of interpersonal relationships and just like being kind to people. And when we go to funerals and burials here, it's really awkward because like you put the body in the ground and the family standing there and people kind of just like come say salam and give them a hug. And it's really awkward. People don't know what to say.
People don't know what to do. Yeah.
People don't know what to say. So you should offer condolences. Just be like, yeah, I'm really sorry for your loss. You know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you patience. May He give you strength. And may He give your loved one paradise. You can keep it very simple, very straightforward. I believe Sheikh Joe actually has an article on this.
Sheikh Joe Bradford?
Yeah. On his website, he has a whole article on how to offer condolences.
Okay, good.
Right.
I'll be sure to link that.
Yeah. So it's an excellent resource. And the Prophet ﷺ would make this particular statement as offering condolences. He would remind them that inna lillahi ma akhadh, that whatever Allah took belonged to Him. Right? Just helping that framework that look, this person that you lost belonged to Allah anyways. It was the property of Allah. Walillahi ma a'ta, and whatever Allah gave you in the first place belonged to Him. So just helping that build that mindset, that attitude that hey, any relationship I have in life, whether it's a wife, a child, a parent, sibling, friend, that's all from whom? Allah. And they're the property of Allah. وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ عِنْدَهُ بِأَجْلٍ مُسَمَّى.
Yeah.
Right? Everything according to Allah has this appointed term. Right? There's an appointed term. They're meant to live here for whatever that appointed term is, and Allah will take it back. Right? So then He would say, فَلْيَصْبِرْ وَلْيَحْتَسِبْ. So be patient. Have sabr, right? Have that self-restraint, have that self-control, accept the decree of Allah, وَلْيَحْتَسِبْ, and expect reward for that.
Yeah.
So those are simple words you can just say to anyone. They're the prophetic words, and inshallah that'll be a source of consolation for the person as well.
It's beautiful. So,
are we out of? Do you have more questions?
Oh yeah. So
I wanted to segue, but
this will help your segue. Sometimes the person dying is not on a deathbed. The person dying is actually within the womb of a mother. And we have stillborns, for example, so which is when someone gives birth to a already dead baby.
Correct.
Another time now, there's a big debate in Roe v. Wade for people's context, which just got quote unquote overturned by the Supreme Court.
Alhamdulillah.
So someone might, let's say someone aborted their baby.
Yeah.
At what point, how old does that baby have to be? And maybe it was for, let's not say it was for bad purposes. Like they aborted for legitimate purposes. The mother was weak, whatever it was. Yeah. How old does that fetus have to be before we even pray janazah for it?
Correct.
Or if it's too young, do we not worry about that?
Okay. So when it comes to like the idea of life, I think that the majority position is that the soul enters the body after 120. Right, after 120 days, that is from conception. So that is when the child is considered to be an actual life.
Yeah.
So the severity of aborting after that point is very high. Right? It's tantamount to murder if there's no legitimate reason, if there's no concession. So if someone were to abort for a legitimate reason, then they would bury the child, but they would shroud it and bury it, but there'd be no salatul janazah.
Okay.
Right, there'd be no salatul janazah, and the reason why I'm saying that is because like in the books of fiqh it mentions if there's a stillbirth, meaning the child was born and it didn't cry, there's no sign of life, then the child will be shrouded and buried, and that's it. But if the child was born and there were some signs of life at first, like it cried for a bit, there was some breathing and then passed away, then you would name the child, you would wash it, shroud it, and bury it.
But it was alive in the womb. I mean, it was until...
So the life in the womb is a separate aspect of life than life outside the womb. So they make this differentiation.
But sometimes a woman can go into labor early, very premature. I think the latest article I saw was 23 weeks. They kept the baby... the baby was still alive, and he lived a life.
Yeah.
So at what point does that?
As soon as it comes out the womb,
and if it's still alive,
letter of the law. So you have to remember, there's like difference between letter of the law and like what we think should be. This is a law to keep things straight in order, right?
No, I understand. For
so
me,
it's still a life inside the womb, right? It's still considered a life, but the reality of that life is very different
than the life outside.
And the way they kind of like say it, like there was the life في عالم الأرواح, right? We don't remember
a bunch of
that.
souls back then. Yeah.
We don't remember that whatsoever. But that was a type of life that we've already lived.
Is it there's a certain name for it, right?
عالم الأرواح.
عالم الأرواح. Okay.
Right. So there was a life that we lived before coming into this world.
Okay.
What it was, what the reality was, we have no clue. But we all know that we had a conversation with Allah. Right? أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى. Right? So that happened. And then they say that there's a life in the womb of the mother. We don't remember anything from that life. But we're alive in there. Right? The soul is there. We're being fed. Right? We're being nourished. But we have no recollection of that. And then when you come into this world, it's a different reality. It's another life, but it's a totally different reality. When you die and you're in your grave in the barzakh, that's another life. Right? There's an aspect of life there as well. And then after the barzakh and the hereafter, that's another life. So each of these are stages of transition. So each stage has its own particular set of rulings to it then.
Okay.
All right. Beautiful. Do you have any questions beyond?
It wasn't going to be about that actually, but you can continue your...
Well, from here, we're going to go to cleaning a body. So if you have something in this realm, go for it.
No, I just wanted to touch base on the importance of actually talking about this conversation, about remembering death and talking about death and understanding it as a process. Like, it's just like death is not the end of your life. Well, it's technically is the end of your life, but it's not the end of your...
Well, it's the end of your dunya life, but not your end of your life, your soul life.
Yeah, it's not the end of your soul. You had a life previous to this life. You're going to have an existence past this life.
Correct.
But now in our context nowadays, like this, what your physical existence now, people think that this is it, to the point that no one wants to talk about death. Mm-hmm. If you notice the Gen Z discourse, they don't use the word die or death anymore. They use unalive. Huh? Into the mic. Yeah, they literally say, "Oh, this person was unalived."
I have to be on the Twitter feed he's on.
Yeah, on TikTok. Yeah, they'll be like, "Oh, this person was unalived. This person." Oh, they don't say this person committed suicide. This person unalived themselves.
Okay, get out of here.
Wallahi. So that's how uncomfortable they are.
Oh, it's interesting. People are more likely to see the birth making process. Quote unquote, right? With the Netflix and videos and TV and pornography, as opposed to actually death. So people are way more, it used to be flipped, right? No one would see the first part, and everyone's going to visit the janazas and the death and the funerals, and now we flipped it completely. So everyone sees how babies are made, but nobody knows what happens after that.
Yeah. So I guess with modernity and all like the advancements in technology and medicine, and perhaps you could say all the advancements in technology and medicine are to prolong life.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, what the median lifespan used to be in the 40s, 50s. Now we're like in the 80s, 90s. Some people have passed 100. And now, billionaires want to upload their consciousness to the cloud and like live, So it's
what's that, like cryogenic. What is that?
Cryogenic freezing.
Walt Disney, man, he's out there somewhere.
Anti-aging, like serums. I mean, we don't want to get conspiratorial, but like the elites, they get the blood of young people.
Let's be honest, man. Those kuffar live forever. They live. The kuffar politicians live forever. All right, everyone knows it.
Long lives.
When McCain, when he died, his mom attended the funeral.
Dude, what?
And he was like,
for real?
I swear to God. I think she's alive. I don't know.
He was in his late 80s, though.
Yeah. And he'd been through God knows what. And his mom attended the funeral. Wow. I was in shock.
Yeah. Whoa.
Kuffar live forever, man. Yeah.
Yo, I never noticed that. Munir.
They inject it in their blood for sure, 100%.
You guys need to go watch Munir at like episode 1 versus Munir now. It's different. He's on a different track.
So within the Islamic framework, death is not taboo.
Yes.
Right? Death is not something that we're afraid of. It's not something we brush under the rug. It's not something we discuss. Rather, death is something that we look right in the eye.
Yeah.
And it's described as the only certainty in life. Life is just a series of uncertainties. We don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next.
Yeah.
But we do know that we're going to die one day. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ.
Yeah.
Every single human being is going to taste death. So that is like the ultimate truth, the ultimate reality that we're supposed to accept. We're not supposed to be afraid of it, but we're supposed to prepare for it.
Yeah.
And that is why the Prophet would advise us that أَكْثِرُوا ذِكْرَ هَذِهِ مِنْ لَذَّاتِ. Frequently remember the destroyer of pleasures. And the companion said, Ya Rasulullah, what is the destroyer of pleasures? He said, Al-Maut. It is death. So we are instructed to remember death frequently. And it's not so that you live like a life that's really like dark and you're always sad and depressed.
Mm-hmm.
No, so it's you realize that, hey, my life in this world is limited. My time here is finite. I'm going to transition to another life, and I have to prepare for that moment. So the way we view death is not as the end of life. It's a transition from one life to another.
Yeah.
And that is why in Arabic they have the statement, intaqala ila rahmatillah, right? That the person has moved on to the mercy of Allah. It's not like life has come to an end, that's it. Right? We don't say you only live once.
Yeah.
As believers, we live
Forever.
forever. Right? So we're not supposed to be afraid of death. And I think that's really important for us to discuss like constantly in our reminders and our sermons and the khutbahs. Every so often there should be a reminder of death. Right? Personally, we should constantly remind ourselves of death. There's advice to go to the graveyard and visit the graveyard because it reminds you of death. Right? That's the main purpose behind it. So we're not afraid of it, rather we prepare for it.
Yeah.
And the way we prepare for death is by making sure our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is strong, our relationship with others is strong, and we're doing as many righteous deeds as possible.
And you're repenting for all of your
Misdeeds.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you will be resurrected in the state that you died, right? I'm not sure of this.
Yes.
So if you die doing something you definitely should not be doing, that's
And that's one of the greatest barriers and preventers from committing sin.
yeah.
Imagine dying while committing a sin.
Like of a alcohol overdose or something. Happens all the time.
Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. Right? Imagine that your death visits you at that moment. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but people have been posting these videos on social media where they show people passed away while giving a khutbah.
Oh, I think I saw that one.
Right? I think it was in Morocco.
Yeah, he was just sitting there giving a khutbah.
And he was talking about the death of the Prophet ﷺ.
Yeah.
And as he's talking about that,
He literally just stops talking. He gives the shahada and just dies.
on the minbar.
It's amazing.
On the minbar. So that got me thinking, imagine if I died doing something wrong. Like it could come to you anytime.
Yeah.
Right? Literally anytime. You don't know when it's going to come. So it's one of the biggest things of keeping you away from sin.
Yeah.
Mashallah.
That's why we fill your life with good deeds. Constantly be doing something. More likely, more often than not, you may die doing something.
I remember when that I don't know which Batman it was.
I will remember
in the theaters, and there was a shooting at the theater that day.
Oh, it was Dark Knight.
It was the Dark Knight.
I think it was Dark Knight. Yeah.
Right. So growing up, I was a huge I was a big movie buff.
Yeah.
And once I got married, my wife's like, we don't go to theaters. I'm like, okay, I can live with that. She's like, what if you die while you're there? I'm like, oh.
Resurrected watching Dark Knight.
So I told her like, okay, that's like a far-fetched idea. And then this incident happens. She's like, see, I told you.
Wow.
I was like, okay, I accept.
Wow.
It's a good point.
Wait, are movies haram now?
No, man. It's just a matter of prioritizing your time and efforts. Yes. Do you have anything else, or else I can?
No, go.
Okay.
Continue with your.
So that we've gone through death. Someone's died. However, it happened.
Yeah.
Now ghusl of the body. So we're gonna take this body from the hospital or the family home, and we're gonna what are we doing with this body now?
Cool. All right. So the first thing is that even the deceased has rights upon us, and the rights that it has upon the community is that it has to be bathed, it has to be washed. Number 2, it has to be shrouded. Number 3, it has to be prayed upon, and number 4, it has to be buried.
Okay.
So all 4 of these are considered to be fard kifaya. They're all communal obligations. And what that means is that someone from the community has to be fulfilling this responsibility. If there's no one in the community doing so, then everyone becomes blameworthy. So the first step is washing the body. Now, back home, overseas, you could wash the body in your own home, right? Because there's no
health regulations
and things like that. Here, I don't think you can. Although I know some people who have done it. I don't think it's allowed. It's not legal. So the body will be taken to a morgue or a mortuary, and there's several Muslim mortuaries available now. I think Garden Grove Masjid perhaps is the oldest. It has it, Islamic Society of Orange County. I believe there's one in Corona, Fontana. The Walnut Masjid has it as well. So there's an organization here that takes care of that. So you call them up, and they will, once the death certificate is released, they will come pick up the body, and they will bring it to one of these mortuaries where the body can be washed. What they do is they put the body on like a metal.
It's actually about as big as this table.
Probably, right?
Yeah,
it's like a metal platform.
Yeah, it's a little tilted, right?
Yeah, it has a drain in it, and they have like the setup there for you to wash the body.
Yeah.
Right now, this is something that I believe everyone should volunteer to experience.
Yeah.
Just because it brings that reality home. right? We all hear about death. We've all seen images of death, perhaps on TV and movies and things like that. But there's nothing like actually witnessing it, right? Like they say, ليس الخبر كالمعاينة. Right? There's nothing like actually experiencing it. So what you do is you wash the body, and it's called غسل الميت. And you start off by performing wudu on the body. That is the prophetic. Oh, my kufi's all messed up.
Do you want you? I mean, if the headphones are uncomfortable, you
No,
could.
that takes. I didn't even notice that. It looked like a yarmulke for it.
Wait, Sheikh, take off the headphones, put them back on, because I don't want your hair to.
Hair's messed up now?
There you go. Yeah. So put it from the front, you bring it back a little. Yeah.
All right. So you perform wudu on the body.
Okay.
So just like you do wudu in real life, you perform wudu on the deceased, but obviously you will not rinse the mouth and rinse the nose, because if you put water, it's not going to back out.
Yeah.
Right. Then you're supposed to wash the body 3 times. Right, from head to toe, it's washed 3 times, and the main purpose of this is for cleanliness. And there's one part where you'll sit the body up, and you'll kind of rub the belly gently. So if there's anything remaining, it will come out. Right, any filth that's remaining will come out, and you do one final washing. And the water should have some sort of fragrance on it, so you can use soap, you can use shampoo to make sure everything's nice and clean. And then you're going to dry off the body. And you're going to put camphor on the masajid, the parts of the body that touch the ground when you're in sajda. So the forehead, the 2 hands, the 2 knees, and the 2 feet. And then you're going to shroud the body.
Sorry, what did you say we put on there?
Camphor.
What's camphor?
It's a scent.
It's a scent. It's a type of fragrance.
Okay.
All right. So the bathing process, again, you need a few people to do it. It's hard to do it on your own. Usually it's going to be the immediate family members and someone from the morgue, someone from the mortuary that helps out. But the body should be washed a total of 3 times. All right. Once the body's washed, then you're going to shroud it, and you shroud it in something that's known as a kafan. All right. Kafan is basically the Arabic word for shroud, and for men, it's 3 pieces of cloth. There's a large piece of cloth called the lifafa. So you put that on the table first. Right, you put the lifafa, which is like a large sheet, a white sheet, and then on top of that, you put what they call the izar. The izar, in when you're alive, it's the lower garment. Right, it's like a waistcloth, lungi, but the izar is essentially another sheet, just as big as the lifafa. And the third thing you put is a qamis. Now, qamis is usually a shirt, but this is more like a poncho. So it's a sheet with a hole in the middle for the head. So you put these 3 sheets down, and then you put the body on top. So first you bring over the qamis over the head. So now the body's covered. Then you wrap the izar and you wrap the lifafa. And that is the kafan. It's just shrouded in these white pieces of cloth.
Gonna look like
What
a
about
hedgie.
what about paying like $10,000 for a coffin?
Coffins are not recommended. If you have to, because there's a regulation, some graveyards have that, then you have no option. But they say you should still put some dirt.
Fill the coffin with dirt, right?
Put some dirt inside the coffin. But ideally, you should just put it in the shroud and no coffin.
I've seen this thing where they try to do these. They're called like ecological burials, where they bury you in like a some sort of like sack, biodegradable sack, and then essentially and they put like a tree, and then the tree feeds on you, and it is something like permissible. So like essentially, you feed a new tree.
Okay.
I thought I saw that, I was like, that looks wrong. I didn't pass judgment, So what maybe I should ask.
I don't know about that.
You don't know about?
I don't know about that.
You don't know about that? Okay.
But ideally, you should just put it in the white shroud.
Okay.
Right. That is the recommendation. That is the sunnah. And if you can avoid having a coffin, there shouldn't be a coffin.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about, so I heard in Sunday school, the martyrs don't get.
Hold on. It's close to time. Do you need to go right now?
No, 12. 12 is fine.
Oh, you said 12? Okay.
So I heard in Sunday school, martyrs don't get washed and shrouded. They just get thrown into the grave because they're martyrs and mashallah, they go straight to Jannah. Yeah. And then I also heard another hadith that I could be a martyr if I die in a collapsed building, a car accident, a stomach, drowning, fire, right? So I'm in a country that's getting bombed and someone dies in a collapsed building. Do I have to wash them and shroud them? Or?
Okay, very good. So there are different classifications of martyrs. Right? There are different classifications of shuhada. There is one specific type of martyr whose body will not be washed. They will be buried and shrouded in their clothes that they were killed in. And those are the ones that actually died on the battlefield. So they are engaged in
Jihad.
I'm going to use the J word. Right?
Jihad.
It's a safe space. Huh?
You told me. It's jihad.
So those who passed away in jihad, whether it was defensive, whatever it may be, and they actually died on the battlefield. So their body will not be washed. They'll be buried in their clothes that they passed away in. The other categories of shuhada, like dying from
Impact.
the plague or impact or drowning or a building collapsing on you, they are shuhada in terms of reward.
Okay.
Right? In terms of reward, they will get the same reward as a martyr. They'll be with them in the hereafter. But for funeral purposes, they're treated like anyone else.
Okay.
So their body will still be washed and bathed. They'll still be shrouded. The salatul janazah will still happen upon them.
All right. That covers it.
That covers it.
Now, this body's been cleaned, ready to go. Where do I take the body? So talk about buying a plot of land. Doesn't Allah say in the Quran, وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ? No one knows what earth they're going to die in, so why should I even buy a plot of land?
Dying right now is expensive.
Yeah, seriously.
So how much is it in Soga?
Well, for first, it starts off with the pharmaceuticals. All right, your hospital stay. Does anyone know what the average hospital stay is per night?
I don't want to know anymore.
I don't know.
The last heard is like $30,000-$40,000
Wait, what?
a night in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
It's insane.
That's what they're charging the insurance company? 40 grand? Wow.
And right now, because of
But you're
COVID
dead, don't pay. So.
Well, your family will, though. They'll come.
Exactly.
They'll get it.
They'll get it somehow. Right now, burial is really expensive. It's
Wow.
really expensive to die. And that's because just prices for everything have increased and the plots of land are limited. So the demand is high as well. So there's one particular graveyard here where I think the whole entire cost is $23,000.
For one.
$23,000.
I can't afford to die.
Exactly.
But this is a fard kifaya on
It's
the
a fard
community.
kifaya.
So if someone can't afford it, what's
So
up?
there are organizations there that help out. If someone's unable to afford that, then they have their contacts that they'll reach out to and they'll collect sadaqah on behalf of them and take care of it. So there is an idea. I mean, first and foremost, there should be someone who's concerned for this. There has to be some organization, there has to be a group of people that's actively looking to establish a Muslim cemetery that's affordable. So in SoCal, there are a few. There's one in Westminster that has a Muslim plot, but that's the most expensive. I heard there's one in Lake Forest that's a lot cheaper, but I believe you have to use a coffin there, and it's not like 100% Muslim plot.
Let's just go to Apple Valley.
Yeah.
You know where that is? It's north of like, there's like San Bernardino and then there's mountains. There's
Yeah.
a town north of that.
Yeah.
So maybe like 2 hours drive.
Okay.
There's nothing there.
Yeah. So there's one in Lancaster like that.
Okay, yeah.
So there's a Muslim cemetery in Lancaster,
Probably empty.
but we have a joke there that if you bury your loved one there, the next time you'll see them is Yawm al-Qiyamah. Because no one's going to drive 90 miles to go visit the grave.
Hey, but at least you died debt free, you know? My God. Okay, well,
It's expensive.
yeah. So should I buy a plot before I die? There we go.
Yes.
I just want to get to.
Yes. If you're planning ahead and you're preparing, you don't want to put your loved ones in like financial difficulty. It's a good idea to buy a plot beforehand. That's just part of preparing for death.
Okay.
Right.
Have your will and buy a plot.
In the reality that we live in today, it's part of preparing for death. Have a plot ready to go.
Okay.
It'll just make things easier for your family, your loved ones. And honestly, dealing with that when you lose a loved one sucks. Like you just lost a parent, and now you have to like
Figure out 20 grand.
you have to figure that out, or you have to do all the paperwork and stuff. It's a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we know where we're going. I have the body. I know where I'm taking it. But before we take it there, we got to pray for it. Right.
Uh-huh.
So, and it's interesting. I go to these janazah prayers. The body's never in the masjid.
Yeah.
But typically, it's not in actual physical masjid. Why is that? Why aren't we praying for it in where we think?
Very good. So there is a legitimate difference of opinion amongst the fuqaha.
Yeah.
If you can perform salatul janazah in the masjid or not. So the Hanafis, they're the strictest on this. They say that salatul janazah should not be performed in the masjid, and they argue mostly using like somewhat like rationalizing it by saying that the masjid is for the living, it's not for the dead. And if you bring the body, a corpse in the masjid, then there's a possibility of there being najasa. Right? There's a possibility of some sort of filth being brought into the masjid and causing the masjid to become dirty. So you pray the salatul janazah outside. And they say that the Prophet ﷺ, when he would perform janazah, he would perform it in the musalla outside, not inside Masjid Nabawi. So those are the arguments they use. But other madhab say no problem. As long as you can ensure that there's no filth that's going to be like dropped in the masjid, there's no problem with it. So the most modern masajid come up with like a in between. So what they do is they have a space for the body outside the mihrab. So in the front of the masjid, the front wall, they'll have like a little space in front. Like in the Garden Grove Masjid, there's like the mihrab where the imam stands, and then there's like a sliding door that opens, and there's a space for the body there.
Yeah.
Right. Here in the Walnut Masjid, they just have a door. They put it outside the door.
So the body goes in front of you when you pray.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So the way you perform the Salatul Janazah is that the body is in the direction of the Qibla, and it's horizontal. Right. The head is to the right, and the feet are to the left. Okay. So the body is there in front of you, and the imam is going to stand across from the chest of the deceased, across from the heart. Now there's also ikhtilaf here as well. The other madhahib say if it's a man, you're going to stand across from the chest. It's a woman, you're going to stand in the middle because it's astar, it's more covering. Right? But the Hanafi say it doesn't matter, man, woman, you stand across from the heart because the heart is the place of iman and belief and things like that. So you stand, the imam will stand there, and then you form rows behind. And it's recommended that regardless of how many people are there, you should at least make 3 rows. Because there's a hadith of the Prophet that whoever 3 rows of people pray Salatul Janazah upon, then Jannah becomes wajib for that person. So try to make 3 rows if possible.
Yeah.
The larger the number of people in Salatul Janazah, the better. Right? Because you have more Muslims.
And so this is an interesting point. So like non-Muslims, when they die, they invite people to a funeral. But as a Muslim, it's actually very common for you to pray for people you've literally never heard of until the day you shut up for Dhuhr and like Janazah prayer. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
The more you pray, the more people pray for you, the better.
Like,
Wasn't a Turkish sheikh who just passed away?
That was crazy.
Had
Shaykh
like
Effendi?
1.2 million
huh?
people.
I heard 3 million.
Was it 3 million? Okay, I heard.
Was it at the Blue Mosque?
To be honest, I wasn't sure.
This guy out
Because
doing
I saw the picture from so far away.
Yeah.
It was just a sea of people.
Just to see a people.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
3 million people
Mashallah.
It
praying
is amazing.
janazah. Yeah.
All right. So in the Salatul Janazah, it's a prayer, right? And the whole purpose of the prayer is dua. There is no iqama. There's no adhan.
There's not even a sajda.
Yeah. There's no sajda.
So you can stand up really close to each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And the imam is going to do 4 takbirs. Right. The janazah prayer is 4 takbirs. After the first one, you're going to recite the thana, right? The opening supplication of prayer. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك وتبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك وجل ثناؤك ولا إله غيرك. And you can recite Al-Fatiha along with it. So you're going to do that after the first takbir. After the second takbir, it's the Salah Ibrahimiyya. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad until the end. Then after the third takbir, you make dua for the deceased. Now there are several ad'iyah that are mentioned in hadith. So there's the famous one, Allahumma ghfir li hayyina wa mayyitina wa shahidina wa ghaibina. That's masnoon, right? That comes from the sunnah. Then there's Allahumma ghfir li jami'i mawt al-muslimin alladhina shahidu laka bil wahdani until the end. That's also from the sunnah. So every Muslim ideally should have these ad'iyah memorized. Right? That should be the gold standard. Everybody in the community should memorize these ad'iyah. The problem is here in America, we don't really pray Salatul Janazah that often. Yeah. It's very rare.
It's very rare.
If you go to Umrah or Hajj, every single prayer,
Every single
prayer.
The first time I went and they announced Salatul Janazah, I asked the guy, I was like, who was this? I thought it was like a VIP. He's like, I don't know, some guy. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So
literally after every single prayer.
Yeah.
Several of them. Right? But here we don't have the opportunity.
No.
So if we have the dua memorized, that's awesome. Because the purpose is to make dua for the deceased.
Yes.
Right? That is the whole purpose of Salatul Janazah. Now for those of you who don't have the dua memorized, you can say رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. If you don't have that memorized, you can just say Allahumma ghfir lahu, Allahumma ghfir lahu. If it's a she, Allahumma ghfir laha. Very simple.
Awesome. Where do our hands go in janazah? I know there's different. So you say the Allahu Akbar, does the hand go down or to your stomach?
So according to the Hanafis, you only raise your hands with the first takbir. So you raise your hands at the first takbir, then you tie them, and they remain tied until the end. And after the fourth takbir, you do salam on both sides. The Malikis, the same thing. The Shafi'is and Hanbalis, you raise your hands with every takbir.
Okay.
So raise it and tie it.
So we went first takbir, was to say Fatiha. Second one, Tahiyyat. Sorry, Salat Ibrahim.
Salat Ibrahim.
Third one,
Dua.
dua. And then the fourth one, technically nothing, right?
Nothing.
So you say Allah Akbar, and then we're going to salam right out.
Mhm.
Okay.
Exactly.
I heard this thing. I don't remember which sheikh I heard it from, and maybe it wasn't a sheikh. But I'll just say it. Like when you're born, someone whispers the adhan into your ear, right? And then when you die, they pray janazah without making the adhan. So that's the time span of your life between the adhan and the iqama and the time to pray.
That's just one of those nice memes.
Is it like a meme thing? Is it a meme thing? Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just something.
I think it was like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf said it. I think that's where I may have heard it from actually.
But yeah, it's a nice reflection.
It is a
It's just to make you realize that life is short.
Yeah, this part of your soul existence is not.
Yes. There's no iqama, there's no adhan, exactly. You're just going to stand up and pray and that's it.
That's it. You're done. Now there is a common practice here that has started recently, is that after Salatul Janazah, the Imam does dua out loud.
What do you mean common practice? Here?
In SoCal, like most janazas that have attended, they will do the Salatul Janazah, and then immediately after they dua.
Is that bid'ah?
I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
I won't declare it to be that, but that's like redundant. The whole purpose of Salatul Janazah is dua anyways. Right? And it's not established from the practice of the Prophet that you do
so
dua.
So little b. Okay. All right. So let's. Oh, okay. Here's another good one because we've talked about prayer, but how about suicide? This person, God forbid, has committed suicide. Can we even pray janazah for the Prophet didn't pray janazah for them? I heard.
What if they're mentally ill?
So there is a lot of confusion regarding this. So first and foremost, there's the actual ruling of suicide itself, right? Which everyone across the board agrees is totally impermissible.
Yeah.
Right? We do not have the right to take our own lives. Right? That's something from Allah. That's only for Allah to decide and determine. But unfortunately, because of mental health issues and problems and depression, whatever the cause may be, people from our community do commit suicide. And it's actually more common than we think. It is more common than we think. And the reason why I know this is that one of the brothers that runs the mortuary service, right, he always tells me that, hey, this person was actually a suicide. And he's saying at least 30 to 40 every year come through.
30 to 40 a year.
That's a lot.
From one guy that you know.
From one guy that I know.
That's saying, like one every week almost.
It's crazy.
Wow.
And he's saying that it's so taboo that the family doesn't reveal it.
Subhanallah.
But he says, I see the death certificate.
Oh.
And it says the cause of death. So he's saying it's more common than you think. It does happen. So that's another aspect of addressing that in the community and talking about that. If a person committed suicide and they did so knowing that it was wrong, they didn't say, oh, this is halal, God allows me to do this. They still die as a Muslim. Right? They're still Muslim. They still have rights upon you. So you can pray their Salatul Janazah. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
So not like physician assistant suicide.
Yeah.
That's out of the question. But
Yeah. So you can still pray Salatul Janazah. That's a common misunderstanding that people have, that you can't pray the Salatul Janazah. But no, you can.
Okay.
They're still Muslim. They died upon Iman. They died as believers. You still pray the Salatul Janazah.
They need your dua more than ever now. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Very good. Very good. So now we've taken this spot. Actually, check the time real quick.
I think we need to wrap it up actually. It's 5 minutes.
All right. Well, we can take a break here. We'll stop here. Now we need, because after this, we want to talk about the burial itself, things that happen there. After it's buried, what can we do? And that'd really wrap it up.
Okay. So short break.
We'll do a little mini break. Yeah.
Mini break.
Okay.
We'll be back after
We'll
the
pause
commercial
it.
break.
Be back in 5. We took a little break, but now we're back. So we have a few more final questions before we wrap up this.
Yes,
this show.
we have visited a sick person. Took them to we're at their deathbed. They've passed away. We've washed the body. We had a plot of land, prayed over them, and now we're gonna get to the actual burial. Picking up this, so it gets transported from the masjid, gets in the car, goes all the way to the burial site. They're gonna pull it out. What happens now? Who's carrying it? What am I saying? Do I have to carry it? Do I rotate in a circle tawaf around this thing? What's going on here?
So there are different etiquettes and teachings of carrying the body of the deceased to the grave, and there is reward for participating. Right? There is reward for giving a shoulder. They say giving a shoulder to the deceased and taking it. So there is reward for doing so. The method that's mentioned in the books of fiqh is that you do rotate. You start with your right shoulder in the front, and it's like the body's being passed. You're not really walking with it. The actual way is the body's being passed forward. So as it's being passed forward, it'll end up with the back of the body on your right shoulder. And then you get back in line on the left-hand side in the front, and it gets passed over your left shoulder until it goes to the back. That's the
front to back.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, that's the real way of doing it. That's mentioned in the books, but practically implementing that is quite challenging because most people have no clue what they're doing. They don't know how to organize it. So most people, what they do is just make 2 lines on each side, and you'll carry the body, and people just take turns carrying it. And even that's perfectly fine. Now, you'll hear a lot of people, like especially from the Desi community, as they're carrying the body, they're like, say kalima shahada out loud.
Yeah.
And people say la ilaha illallah out loud. I don't know if that being from any narration. I wouldn't recommend doing it like out loud, but at that moment you should be doing some sort of dhikr and dua silently, right? Because it's a moment of reflection. It's a moment of like thought. It's a reminder. Oftentimes, unfortunately, what happens is because we're desensitized to death and loss, that the funeral, especially at the graveyard, becomes like a reunion of sorts, and people are like talking about sports, joking around, talking about, I don't know, cryptocurrency and investments at the graveyard. And it's kind of like what's going on here?
It's a detachment from what here.
Yeah.
So you should keep yourself like, keep like a solemn attitude. Remember death. Do some dhikr dua. So you do carry the body, and you'll bring it close to the grave. You'll put it down. Now the way it is like it's in like a metal. There's a metal platform. There's a cage on top. So you take the cage off, then you have the body. The way they do it here is you have 3 people that sign paperwork that will go into the grave, because it's like liability for the graveyard, things like that. So you have usually 3 family members sign, and they go into the grave. And you have people up top pass the body to them inside. So as the body's being passed and placed in the grave, it's sunnah to say Bismillah wa ala millati Rasulina, with the name of Allah and upon the way of the Messenger of Allah. So you're reciting that as the body's being lowered into the grave. Now the sunnah is you're supposed to enter the body through the direction of the qibla. Just whatever the side of the qibla is, you put the body through that direction. And the way you place the body in the grave is that the face should be towards the qibla, ideally. Now the recommended grave that we're supposed to have is called laht. It's an L-shaped grave. So you dig down straight, usually the height of the body, and then you make a niche on the right-hand side. So it's a niche, and you're supposed to put the body in that niche on its right side towards the qibla. Then you close off the niche with like dirt or baked bricks, and then you fill the grave with dirt. You can't do that here because it's not right.
Yeah.
Over here, every grave is like standardized
because of those same safety requirements.
And whatever the regulations are. So the grave is just straight down, and the grave is also a concrete box. So they actually put a concrete box in the grave. So you're going to put the body,
earthquakes here.
So you put the body inside that. There's dirt, right? There's dirt there, and you put the body. The 3 people inside will kind of like lift it and tilt it towards the qibla, and put dirt to keep it up like that. And then they come out the grave, and the tractor comes and puts a lid on top, the concrete lid. So there's dirt inside, but there's not going to be any dirt directly on top of the body. Then they close that lid, and that's when people come now throw dirt over the deceased.
Do you need to leave room on top? I heard one time we had a very interesting janazah, and like you need to leave room for their head so they can sit up and answer the questions of the angels.
There's nothing like that.
Okay,
right. So then you do participate in throwing dirt, and there's a lot of reward for doing so. And there is a weak riwayah that mentions you say those verses from Surah Taha, right? Minha khalaqnakum wa fiha nu'idukum wa minha nukhrijukum taratan ukhra. So minha khalaqnakum, from it we created you. Wa fiha nu'idukum, to it we're going to return you. Wa minha nukhrijukum taratan ukhra, and from it we'll bring you about again. There's a weak riwayah, but because it's fada'il, you can practice on it. It's okay.
It's rewarding.
It's rewarding, and it's a reminder for people as they're throwing.
So is it three handfuls, right hand, left hand, both hands? Does it matter?
Both hands.
Okay.
Both hands, and all these are recommendations. Right? There's not like fard wajib. You don't.
So I could throw one handful and move on if I wanted, without even saying anything. I say Bismillah.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. There's no like exact process that you have to follow.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So once the dirt is thrown on top, everyone's kind of participated. Then the tractor comes and like fills in the rest of it. They kind of make it, into a mound or whatever. And then usually if there's an imam there, the people will gather and they'll make one final dua. Like there'll be a short reminder about death, and then the imam will make dua for the deceased and their family.
What about the women? Are they allowed to be present, or is that a different?
Amazing question. So that is an important question. And I've seen the gradual like evolution of this over the past. I've been back for like 12 years now. Like I've been back since 12 years. So initially when I came back, it was almost unheard of that sisters would come. They would not even come to the graveyard. There'd be no space for them there. It was just a guy's thing. Slowly, gradually, you started seeing sisters coming that stand to the back and they'd just be there. And now it's like full on, we're participating.
Mixed, yeah.
Yeah, it's like full on, they just came, they throw the dirt as well. I don't know where that came from and how that started, but that's like the norm. According to the Hanafis, it is permissible. It is
for the women to be
jaiz
present.
for women to be present, to be there, as long as they can control their emotions. Like there's no wailing, there's no like
That's
crying
true of
out
the
loud.
men too,
Yeah.
actually. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. As long as there's no wailing, there's no crying, there's no like overly excessive behavior, whatever it may be, and obviously that they, the proper etiquette should be observed. Like just like the etiquettes of a masjid should be observed, the etiquettes of the graveyard should be observed. There should be gender segregation. Right? There shouldn't be like free mixing at the graveyard, especially at the graveyard.
Yeah.
People should take their time. People should be dressed appropriately.
Should women be throwing dirt? Is that part of it?
So I haven't come across any like strict prohibition for it. So technically they could,
Okay.
but I don't.
But you don't want to be separated
Yeah.
as you do that. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I attended one in Egypt. I think Egypt's mainly Shafi'is,
Yeah.
and the women were like way in the back.
Yeah.
I could barely see them. Yeah.
In Pakistan, they don't participate in
Yeah.
any aspect of the funeral.
They didn't touch the body. They
Yeah.
weren't near the body.
Yeah.
They like left, and then the men were there before and after. They
Yeah.
were just there, just watching it being brought in.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And Saudi is strict. They follow the strict Hanbali position that women can't even go to the graveyard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said afterwards the imam will stand, give like a reminder and dua.
Mhm.
Do we do eulogies in Islam? So where we say he was a good man, he was a good father, and a good husband. And
So like in the sense of like a full on eulogy where you have these like prep statements and you're just like overly praising the person. There are hadith where it says that the angel says, were you really like that? Were you really like that to the person?
oh no,
So you can do a eulogy, but it should be fair. It should be balanced. Right? We're encouraged to remember the good things about the deceased, not the bad things.
Okay.
So you can mention some this was a person of iman. This is a person that came to the masjid. They were generous. They were good to their families. That's perfectly fine.
okay.
There's nothing wrong with that.
You don't want to be over the top, prepped type of thing. Just like good
Yeah.
man. Just,
Yeah.
May Allah,
May Allah forgive. Exactly.
Okay. That's
exactly. In terms of like, so you can make again dua there. That's recommended. That was the practice of the Prophet ﷺ to make dua as well. It is said that the family should remain. Right after the burial is complete, the family should remain for a certain amount of time, because it says that the soul of the deceased finds comfort in that. It gives them comfort because the angels are going to come.
Yeah.
Right? Those two angels are going to come and ask those questions immediately. That the person's going to be propped up, man rabbuk, ma dinuk, man nabiyuk. Those questions are going to happen. So the family being there gives them that comfort, gives them that confidence. So the family should remain there. And as the family is remaining there, they make dua. Allahumma thabbithu bil qawli thabit. Allahumma ghfir lahu. Keep making dua for the person.
Do you remind them of the answers? I've heard that.
I haven't heard that.
Okay.
But what
I think I saw that happen one time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We saw a guy yelling at the grave.
Yeah.
So-
the dua,
Oh, was that the in slow?
It's like-
I think
the
the
dua I heard is Allahumma thabbithum bil qawli thabit.
So give them the firmness on that
Yeah.
answer.
On that answer.
were they bravely?
I don't know.
They do
man.
interesting things at the
I think they told us they're like something's gonna happen if you don't want to be here, leave. And I think we walked away, and then the guy kind of started going like crazy on the grave. Yeah,
I've heard reciting parts of Baqarah at the head or feet of the.
So there is a riwayah in Mishkat al-Masabih. Again, it's weak,
Yeah.
but it says that at the head you recite the opening verses of Baqarah,
Okay.
and at the feet the ending verses.
Just like what the first 5 and then the last 2, I would assume.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
if someone does that as a practice for fadail, I think that's okay.
Okay. Cool.
That's okay.
So that
And then also Yasin at the grave,
oh yes.
Yeah.
because it's ala mawtakum, you can interpret it both ways.
Mm.
So if someone were to recite Yasin at the graveyard, that would also be okay.
Okay. Cool. This comes up sometimes. We're there and it's also time. Do we pray at the graveyard?
Yeah. So as long as you're praying in a space and in a way that you're not praying towards a grave and people don't think that you're praying to a grave, it's okay.
Okay. So you find an empty plot and
Yeah.
everyone's gonna know like you're obviously not praying to some dead person.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Then it's fine.
All right. So this person's been buried. You stated you made your dua. You've left. and sometimes people like and slow, they like to go back to the masjid and they do like a whole dua, like a long dua for the person. And that was, I think you're mentioning like that one's, maybe I wouldn't do that one, but
they also do khatm.
There we go. So I want to get to that one. That's very common. Someone passes away, they say, okay, this weekend the family's inviting you guys to the masjid, and they'll bring food, and everyone's gonna take a juz, and we're gonna recite the Quran as a reward for this person. Is that okay?
So in the Desi culture, it's called Quran Khani, and it's a very, very common practice. So as long as it's being done in a way where people don't think this is sunnah, people don't think this is a prophetic practice, it's not an aspect of deen, it's not fard, it's not wajib, and they're just doing it to kind of like gift the reward to the deceased, it's fine. But that should be clarified. Right? People should make it known that this is not a prophetic practice, this is not an act of worship that we know of for sure, but we're just doing this to gift to the deceased, then it doesn't fall into that realm of being bid'ah.
So what can you gift?
Can you gift Umrah, Hajj?
Good. So the explicit things is that you can get they classify acts of worship into like 3 categories. So there's those that are strictly physical, like praying and fasting. So you cannot pray and fast on behalf of the deceased.
Okay.
Like you can't make up their missed prayers for them. You can't make up missed fast for them, but you can pay a penalty on their behalf.
Okay.
You can give fidyah.
Because so some woman, they'll say, tell people before you die how many days you had left.
Correct.
And for that reason, not to fast them, but to pay off
That.
Okay.
Correct. But you can fast, and you can say, you know what, the reward of this fast, I would like them to receive it.
But that's different than making up a mandatory fast that they have for Ramadan.
That's different than fasting on their behalf.
Okay.
Right? You can do Umrah and Hajj on their behalf because that's explicitly mentioned in Hadith.
Okay.
Those 2 acts of worship particularly, it's mentioned in Hadith, you can do that on their behalf. Then any good work, you can do it with the intention of them getting some reward for it. And that's totally fine. Like you'd be like, you know what, I'm reading this Quran and I'm doing it to gift the reward to, my deceased father.
Okay.
Right? And obviously make dua for them.
Yes, obviously.
Of course.
Because actions end at death except for 3 things. One of them is like a child.
A righteous child that supplicates for you.
Okay.
And of course, charity on their behalf.
Yes.
Right? Charity on their behalf. Any sort of waqf, like any sort of endowment, any sort of whatever it may be.
Yeah, like Shaykh Tahir Anwar in the Bay Area, he was saying some families will come and they'll do this big condolence dinner or whatever else, or they'll waste their money on weird things for the grave or whatever it is. He's like, give me that money and I can build you a masjid in India, and they're going to get the reward of that masjid until Yawm al-Qiyamah.
Exactly.
So you can be very smart about their inheritance or whatever it is. You can take that money and do something well that's just going to keep going for them.
Exactly. Or like a well or whatever.
Yes.
And your dollar goes a long way overseas.
Yes.
A long way. And because you brought up inheritance, and that's an important aspect.
Yeah.
That's
the last aspect. There we go.
Before a person passes away, they should have a written will.
mywasiya.com.
Exactly.
Joe Bradford, please.
So it turns out I found out it's not completely like state binding. What you should really get is a trust. Then the trust will actually take care of it, and in the trust you have to like word it like you can't say by Islamic laws.
Ahmed Sheikh does it. So if you go on his thing, you get a consultation.
There you go.
Exactly.
Or some people check your work. Like I know my job has like a benefit where you can get really cheap, inexpensive trusts.
Yeah.
So you might have like a legal counsel or some type of benefit. So look into that, because then you can get a trust for very inexpensive.
Yeah.
You have to do the calculations yourself. Yeah. They're not going to do it for you. So you're going to be like, all right, based on my family, 20%, 30%, 40%. All right. Yeah.
So this is really important because unfortunately, money causes problems. More money, more problems. It's true.
Subhanallah. Yeah. When someone dies, especially, it's like you think that's not on someone's mind, but
I've seen where like relationships between siblings are ruined because of these things.
Assets,
it gets ruined. Like they haven't spoken to for like 20 years.
Who gets the house? Who gets the car?
Exactly.
Who gets
It gets nasty. So all these things to avoid that should be clarified before death, and the best way is by having an actual document that's attested, that's legally binding, that's recognized, that people could follow, so to avoid all these issues and all these problems. And in terms of like the inheritance laws are there, it has set portions that just goes to the heirs, but up to 1/3 of your estate, you can do a wasiyah, you can bequest, and you can give that to whatever you want. If it's an individual, if it's a project, a masjid, an organization, up to 1/3 of your estate you can give, but after that 1/3, everything goes to the normal channel of inheritance.
Yeah, because sometimes you see like famous.
Bill Gates, famous.
Bill Gates does it?
He'll give 1% or whatever it is. Let's say 1% or 1.1. I can't remember. is going to go to his kids, and the rest is going to give it away.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's actually the ultimate. Like you're like, oh, that's great. Well, they're going to be millionaires anyway. Who cares?
No, you can't.
You don't get to decide.
They actually get to be billionaires.
You know what's interesting? People are like, oh, Muslim, your inheritance laws are so backwards. Women get half. In certain scenarios, they don't know that, but in certain scenarios, they get half of what a man gets. You know what's amazing? These people criticizing us. I'm sorry. How much do you get guaranteed?
Yeah.
How much do you get? Zero, baby. Zero. You know, it's a famous movie, Disney movie. 90s or 80s maybe, Aristocats.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys remember it. It's this widow, rich widow. She has a butler, and she has like 6 cats. And in her will, she's giving her money away when she dies to the cats. The butler's been serving them for decades, right? Yeah. And the whole movie's that the butler's like, I'm gonna get rid of the cats. They're gonna, you know, that way she only has me to give the money to, right? And the whole movie, you're rooting for these cats to inherit the entire will of this rich widow, and you're like. But in reality, this is psycho. And everyone in America be like, yeah, cats, get that inheritance.
Your dad can die and like give all his money to his mistress, leaving your family
with nothing.
With nothing.
Yeah. You give it to his dog. It doesn't matter.
So there's actual real stories where they give it to their dogs.
Yeah.
They left their entire estate to the dog.
This is retarded.
Oh, there was a...
Sorry, it's misguidance. Wallahi. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. It's misguidance. It's just there's... Like, what's his name? Jackie Chan is giving 0.
To his kids?
Yeah. What's his name? The famous chef.
Ramsey,
0. He's like, we're paying for your college education, but after that, you're on your own. Which is like, okay, I mean, you're probably going to make it, but like, it's just Islamic.
Yeah.
The thing is, people don't understand.
This is the definition of dhulm.
Yeah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, you have to understand your risk is written for you. Mm-hmm. You didn't just, I earned this money. I get to. No, you didn't earn. Allah gave it to you through means. And you don't get to decide what to do with it afterwards. So that's
Knives Out. That was a good movie.
Oh, Knives Out.
The whole premise of that movie is the guy gave his money to anyone but his family. And I was like, yeah, they're all greedy. They don't deserve it. But in reality, this is complete bull. He gave it to some random immigrant. Like, it makes no sense.
Nothing against immigrants. I'm an immigrant.
Yeah. Well, it's not his related immigrants.
Munir, wallahi, bro. You're going to...
cancel me out.
No, but that point is important. We're like that whole philosophy of like ownership and wealth and realizing that our money's not really ours.
Yeah, it's not.
It's really important to understand because people sometimes they have such a hard time swallowing that pill of inheritance.
Yeah, and I think once you understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed it a certain way, and if it's split up like that, there shouldn't be animosity between the family.
Yeah. God said this is going to be what's perfect for you. That's perfect for them. And it's going to work out best for all of you and the most blessings in it. And you're all going to have more than what you thought if you actually truly believe and internalize that.
Alhamdulillah. That's why, like, the more, I feel like, especially in the past few years, the more you see how people are just starting to come up with stuff and just this is how they live their life now, and then they just, they don't, first they didn't believe in God, now they thank the universe, and things are just going all over the place, right? So you're like, you become really, really thankful because you start seeing it like, okay, without guidance, this is literally what's happening in front of you. Yeah. Right? Like, without guidance, people destroy themselves. Like, how are you going to destroy yourself?
You see it.
You're literally seeing it in front of your very eyes, right? Huh. So, death, very important.
Remember it frequently. Remember it frequently.
Have a will.
Inshallah, I mean, I hope I hit every point. I want to hit every possible question someone has about death and sickness and condolences and I want one resource, timestamp it all, and someone searches it. It's all there.
Inshallah.
I think you gave me the idea of making this into a booklet as well.
I told you, man.
I started it.
Oh, you did.
Oh, you did?
Process, yeah.
Okay. Once it's done, would it be like a ebook PDF thing or
both, Amazon? I can just get
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Inshallah. We'll make sure to put that in the comments once that's released.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think we covered everything.
May Allah give us a good death.
Ameen. Okay. Jazakallah khair, Shaykh, for joining us today.
My honor, my pleasure.
Thank you to all the listeners. Remember, please comment, like, and subscribe. A good 75% of people listening and watching are not subscribed. I don't know why. So please hit the subscribe. Yeah, astaghfirullah. So with that, this is Amr Mabruk with the Prophetic Mentality Podcast, signing off. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.